The world of digital marketing moves at a dizzying speed. Strategies, budgets, tactics, buzzwords. How can we even begin to distinguish the signal from the noise, the good moves from the bad? Take it from the team that's tripped as much as we've triumphed. We're putting our best moves in the spotlight and spilling every secret to give you step-by-step instructions to steal for your own success and digitally scale your business. This is Marketing Moves.
Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Moves. I'm your host, Ashtyn Morris, Senior Account Executive and Strategic Partnerships Lead at Vivid Front. Today, I'm joined by two leaders behind one of the fastest growing home improvement companies in the country, AJ Wadian, co-founder and CEO of Premier Home Pros, and Vince Venditti, president and co-owner. In just over 4 years, Premier Home Pros has grown from a two-person operation in North Canton to a national company that closed 2025 at approximately $170 million in revenue. Today, we'll unpack how they did it, the systems that enabled rapid expansion, the marketing lessons that came from getting it wrong, and what it really takes to scale a home improvement business without sacrificing your team or margins. AJ, Vince, welcome to Marketing Moves.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So excited. AJ, you came from Leaf Home and Window Nation. What made you look at the bathroom remodeling space and believe you could build something better?
First off, I think the industry is massive, but it is fragmented. Bathrooms for Premier was literally just on the whim. Like, we looked at the Qualified Remodeler 500, which is the top 500 companies based on revenue, and said, in this industry, what's an opportunity for us to be able to scale and it's not overly saturated? And that's how we picked bathrooms. It didn't come with a large background in installation or sales or even marketing. It was, hey, this is an opportunity for Premier to capture a lot of the market, and that's how it started.
Were you ever nervous to do your own thing?
I think you're always nervous when it's something new and it's something that you've never been in those kind of waters. Or it's one of them things where you would say any risk is scary, but at the same time, I think that's where a lot of, like, me, Vince, and even our third partner know that's where we excel at, is when our backs are against the wall and risk is heavy. But I think those are the environments that we excel as owners in.
You closed your first sale within 3 days, correct?
Yeah.
What did that tell you about the potential for this company?
When we turned the lead opportunities on for marketing and we said, hey, we're going to run our first appointment on Monday, I would say that we had a lot of confidence because we already knew the process. It's just switching out the product, right? The sales process, the system, going from A to Z, and the customer fulfillment stage is the same, just a different product that you're plugging in. But I would say the confidence was high that we were going to be able to deliver a good service to the customer and be able to do what we do best in the sales process. And when we did it, and we got our first sale in the first 3 days of the business being open, and we were confident that, hey, we could do something with this.
That's amazing. Vince, you spent time building marketing at Leaf Home before moving to American Residential Services. What made you want to join the team?
It's actually a funny story. I spent 9, almost 10 years at Leaf Home, and I met my wife there. It was a great company, and I'm very grateful for all the opportunities it brought me. I grew very quickly, and it was a lot of fun in the moment. And when I got the opportunity from ARS, initially I turned it down. I was very loyal to that company, and I had been there for, as I mentioned, 9 years. It was a big part of my family and everything else. But they were persistent and always listened to an opportunity. One thing led to another, and all of a sudden I'm at ARS. And it was my first real opportunity to work with a 50-year-old company. ARS had been American Residential Services has been around for a long time. And I was there for about a year and a half, and then I got the phone call from these guys, a very similar phone call, which we can go into. But ultimately, when I got reached out to by Noah and AJ, they told me, look, Vince, we have this $15 million company that we just started. And I don't know if you remember us, we didn't work together a whole lot together, but we were all working at Leaf at one point. And they said, we started this new business. We'll do $15 million in sales. Would you be interested in joining? And initially I was hesitant. I was at ARS for only a year and a half at this point. And I thought, I think that it's probably too soon for me to move on to the next chapter. But these guys are great sales guys. I'll tell you that. And they said, let's just grab breakfast. And we went to this little joint called Flurry's in Cuyahoga Falls. And we sat down in this little booth, and the booth was so small, AJ and I were crammed in on the one side. And what I saw they had was just remarkable. It felt like deja vu. It felt like I've been here before, and you guys have built something so incredible, him and Noah. And I thought, you're missing one piece, and I think it's my skill set, and I think that's ultimately why AJ had Noah reach out to me in the beginning. And I went home and I told my wife, I'm going to say something crazy. I want to leave the company that I've been at, that is a $2 billion company with all the executive perks and everything you can imagine, everything you think you work for in life. I want to leave that for a company that's been around for about 10 months that I believe in. And my wife, as I mentioned, I met her at work at Leaf. She is a marketing executive by trade, and she looked at me in the eyes and she said, I knew this was coming. I knew it, Vince. I didn't know when, but I knew this was coming because you are a builder at heart, and you haven't been building. You've been managing where you are. So I remember calling AJ. I called Noah back, and I said, I'm in. And you can tell at that moment they were like, oh, wow, like really? I said, yeah,
moving on.
I'm in. Like, let's do it. Let's build this thing together. So we had some things we had to work out between then and there with non-competes or legal issues or things like that. But we were able to get through those. And at the end of the day, they asked, what do we think we can do next year? I said, I think we can do around 50 million. And they said, 50 million? Great, let's do it. We were way off. We did 86 million in 2024.
Wow.
In 2025, we did 151. And in 2026, we're pacing around 20 million a month right now. So I'm so grateful I made the jump. I would say one of the things in my career that I have done is I have been a bit aggressive. I saw something that they had. And what they had was no marketing. I know we're going to talk a lot about marketing today. No marketing leader can be successful without the right counterparts, without the right operations leaders. You can get as many leads as you need. But if you don't have the people that can hold people accountable, get those leads sold, get those leads installed, the marketing isn't worth a whole lot to begin with. So what I saw was really a strong marriage between my skill set and their skill set. And I knew right then and there we were going to be special.
That's an incredible story. I am curious. How did you know he was the guy? I know you said you knew him in passing, worked together, but how did you know you're like, we got to go hard after this guy?
Well, Leaf went through like crazy growth in a matter of 3 to 4 years, right? It was like unprecedented growth happened from digital presence and branding and all these things. And I remember in those, what we would call the go-go days when Leaf was doubling their business year over year and some years tripling their business, I remember that Vince was a big part of the digital marketing. And that was all Premier was digital marketing. It didn't have brand because it was a 10-month-old business, and it needed someone that knew how to manage partnerships and knew how to drive lead growth and open new markets that we're not in. So when I thought of the overall landscaping industry, I'm like, who would be a good fit here? It took me 2 minutes on LinkedIn to go, I know a guy. And it was Vince. And I also knew that when I reached out to him, I wasn't sure where he'd be at in his career. I knew that he recently, just based off LinkedIn, the activity, he wasn't at Leaf anymore, but I didn't know where he was at in the cycle of his career, if it was even something he considered. But I knew that if we could get him, and then I learned other things upon his skill set after him being here, but I knew if we could get him that we had a real opportunity to unlock the keys of the city.
It's an incredible partnership. Like you said, Premier Home Pros launched around the end of 2022 with a focus model. One-day bathroom remodels using proprietary engineered steel materials, supported by a disciplined, process-driven sales system. You've had incredible growth. So walk us through what Premier Home Pros does today. Who is your core customer, and what transformation are you delivering?
I think when you look at every customer in the bath industry, I think there's 3 focuses that one of these people fall into these motivators. One is going to be obviously just updating aesthetics. That's people are looking at, hey, I got an outdated bathroom. I just want to replace what I have. And then you have the people that are concerned about safety and convenience. They're looking to age in place, stay in their home, be able to get accessible inside the shower or the tub and not have a lot of risk associated with it. And then you have a marriage between those two. The third customer is really just concerned about budget and overall resale value of the house. So when you look at the overall age demographic, it's massive, right? It's not so segmented to 55 or older. It's anywhere from they're a first-time home buyer that's 30 to 40 years old to the people that are retired and before their last stop.
It's incredible. And you guys did this without any outside investment, right?
Yeah. We started the business with $65,000. And at this point, the company is a debt-free company. It's never been acquired by private equity or any outside banking or an investor that's not associated in the day-to-day business activities.
I think that is so rare in our industry right now. There have been some really great private equity stories and some really tough private equity stories in our industry. And a lot of companies do tend to, by the time they get to our size, 150 million last year, probably closer to 250 million this year, there's an exit strategy for the founders. And I think what we found is that we learned a lot over the past few companies. That when I was at ARS, there were 2 different private equity companies involved. at Leaf there was one, and it provides a lot of upside, but we also know the downside that can come with it. So having that kind of experience in the hindsight to be able to look back and say, okay, here's some really good things that come of it, and here's maybe some challenges. I think that if you were to ask us what is one of the most proud things that you are of this company, I would say it is that we've been able to keep this truly debt-free. And when I say debt-free, outside of a little bit of accounts payable, we don't have a single investor outside of myself, AJ, and our third partner, Noah. And the employees love that. The markets love that. And I think the customers love that too, because there have been some horror stories, and rightfully, definitely, I can say that we are very proud of that.
How have you guys stayed so lean and debt-free? I'm just curious. Obviously, that requires a lot of diligence on your part. So what were some of the hard decisions you had to make to ensure that you were operating from a healthy perspective?
Hardest part of the business is it's a people business, right? So when you have this kind of this trajectory of growth, you need to insert new people, but you got to be able to do it affordable. You got to be able to do it to where we can not only afford to do it, but also put the right people in place for the next 3 to 4 years move versus, hey, I just need to plug a hole right now. So we've had departments where we've scaled really fast and broadened those departments out, and we've had some that run lean and they get the job done. Now it's last year's initiative or this year's initiative to start adding those people and broaden out a finance team, a service team, and throughout the departments of the company.
Oh, yeah. Can you walk us through your relationship with Trumbull Industries? How is this an important supply chain control as you scale?
Trumbull Industries, which is the supplier of our product, and they actually pretty much facilitate almost everything inside the bathroom that we currently buy. We found them by an accident. So we were using a different supplier. They came into one of our local offices one day, dropped off a card and some samples, and nobody responded. The guy came back the next day and said, "Did you get the samples?" I said, "No, I didn't. I don't even know if I left them with somebody." So he's let me go in my car. He grabbed them. I looked at them. I'm like, "Wow, these are amazing compared to what we had." I'm like, this is a real opportunity to be different in the bath space, which is overly saturated with a couple different products, whether it's tile or acrylic. And I said, this is different. I think this is an opportunity for when we go to scale, we're going to be able really to differentiate ourselves versus our competitors. And it's right down the road an hour, and we're going to be able to get product really quickly if they can meet that demand. And we've grown together as a business. We have. I remember walking in, it was me, you, and Noah, and Joe at the time. And I said to the owner of Trumbull Industries, I said, listen, we're going to be your largest buyer in the country in the next 6 months. And I remember him looking at me and he goes, okay, we've been in business for 50 years and I've heard that before. And in 6 months, we're the largest buyer in the entire United States that bought product from them. Right now, I think we make up about 48% of all their market. And the businesses went through a lot of growth. And with that comes some chinks in the armor, right? It doesn't always work perfectly. Fulfillment gets really tough on a supply chain end. And the businesses went through some transformative decisions at the end of last year to actually now control our own supply chain. So now we're sourcing our own products and we're going into that factory direct model to where we can deliver the excellent service to the customer in a lot quicker turnaround time, and we can be a lot more accurate with fulfillment on a supply chain end.
You've talked about your 12-step sales system. Can you expand on that a bit more?
Yeah, I think 30 years ago, the everyday customer was like, hey, I'm going to go through the Yellow Pages. I'm going to get 3 quotes. I'm going to figure out these 3 plumbers I'm going to have sit down and look at the job and give me 3 quotes to make a decision. And what ends up happening 99% of the time is the consumer goes, I don't want the most expensive one. I don't want the least expensive one. I want the one in the middle. And what we've realized that today's consumer, they're not really like that because the information on the internet is so powerful. You can learn everything about a topic that you want before you waste a professional's time to come out. So our goal is to come out and inform and educate the customer thoroughly from an A to Z process in that consultation, and inform them of the overall investment that they're going to make, the product options that they have in the industry, the price points of those products, and then go over some opportunities depending on the product that they pick to give them the best price while we're there and save everybody a lot of time.
So if someone engages with you guys with that robust system in place, how long typically does it take for a customer to become educated and then become a formal customer with you guys?
Yeah, so consultation typically is anywhere from 90 minutes to 120 minutes, so an hour and a half to 2 hours. And in that, they learn 7 days worth of information. They learn a lot. But we use a lot of interactive software where we can show them what their bathroom will actually look like with AI, and they can actually visually see what that new bathroom will look like. And I think the goal is when someone decides to move forward is they want that now. Today's consumer wants whatever they're buying today. They don't want to wait for it. And we've been able to transcend the industry, which is a lot attested to the growth that we've been able to do, is we can have that project in their home in 5 to 7 days.
Oh, wow.
Like it's a done.
That's incredible.
The job's installed in their house in 5 to 7 days. That right there has shaken the industry in a good way to be able to say, hey, we can deliver excellence really fast, and you're going to enjoy the investment that you have in your home quickly. You're not going to have to wait 6 to 8 weeks like a lot of the industry is waiting right now.
Yeah, you're meeting your customer where they're at. And I'm curious, do you have any marketing tactics in place during that sales period of email nurture flows or things of that sort? Or is it such a quick turnaround and the sales team does such a good job? Does marketing not necessarily have to come into play?
No, there's a really big communication factor. You think to how much communication has changed really since COVID. Now, you order something online, you're able to look at it on a map and see exactly where it is. And it's not over communication, but you're definitely able to get information about your order at any point in time. So one thing that we've done is we've developed internal software to make sure that we are texting, emailing, pinging these customers throughout that customer journey. Things as simple as, hey, the person coming out to your home today's name is Jim, and Jim is like this. And so that way, when the person who shows up to the home, they feel like they already know them. There's an element of trust there. Another element to that would be, thank you for your order. It's that making sure they have the contract, making sure they have full transparency directly after the sale. So they don't have to call in and ask for that, but we're pushing it to them directly. And then not only that, but constant updates throughout. So we have what are called milestones. So a milestone would be your product's been ordered or your payment's been cleared. Then your product's been ordered. Then it's been received. And then we're scheduling the actual install date. You'd be amazed at just how happy customers are just to have that constant update to say, here is the current status of your order. And it makes sense. You go on DoorDash now, you're literally watching the person bring it to your house, right? Anybody is. And the same thing with Amazon. You order it, it's very clear where it is in process, and you make it simple. Home improvement, remodeling is one of those industries that certainly isn't at the precipice of innovation. And I think that's been one of our really big differentiators is our ability to take some of those applications from other industries and say, okay, a person's a person, whether they're buying a washer and dryer from Home Depot, they're buying something on Amazon, or they're buying a new bathroom, the process should be very similar and the communication should be similar. And really what people want is they want trust. If there's one word that the home improvement industry for a long time has lacked, it's trust. And the reason is because you ask anybody, everybody has had a tough time with a contractor. And that's a huge part of our sales process. You're not going to go to the person who sells it versus the person who installs it versus the person that made the product and warranties it and the distribution company. You just have Premier to call. So communication's the number one thing there. There's a lot of tech and automation that we've set up to make sure that those things are in front of the customer at every point of that process.
I think the DoorDash example is perfect because I get up in arms about a DoorDash order not being delivered on time, and that's a significantly less investment than a home bathroom remodel. Right. So I think that's the right approach you guys have because you'd rather over-communicate than not enough, and someone's, I just spent X amount, and I haven't heard from them, and they showed up at my door. That really goes a long way with the trust factor.
It's every homeowner's worst fear because everybody's been through that with some type of contractor or another. Trust is that word, and I think that's what we try to display each day, and it has gone a long way for us. And honestly, I still think we can be a lot better. There's no doubt about it. But the number one thing that a lot of home improvement companies miss on is the expectation that's set at the kitchen table with the sales representative is high. And then the delivery doesn't meet that expectation when you're installing, or a lot of companies, it's once we get the upfront contract and it's signed, the rest of it falls apart. We try to make sure that our installation and operations elements of the business and technology-backed elements of that are just as strong, and we put just as much effort, time, money, scale into the front end as we do the back end, the sales as we do the installation.
I do want to circle back to something you said earlier about marketing not fixing a broken system. And you've said on LinkedIn in a few different posts that more leads don't fix a broken system, they expose it. So when you joined the team, what would you say needed to be done on the marketing front to really scale? I know there wasn't much marketing in place, so what did you know you had to start with first?
What I was first impressed with was their understanding of a lot of home improvement leaders are former sales individuals like AJ, like Noah, and a lot of times they think that leads solve everything. I've seen it at different companies. And what happens is you get more leads And then your rate at which the leads turn into appointments goes down. The rate at which if you had 100 leads and you used to create 30 appointments, now you're creating 20. And of those 20, you used to run 15 of them, now you're running 10. So great, you have more leads, but you don't have more revenue. And I think that's where it gets disconnected at the business end, is then you're starting to silo these business units. And marketing feels like they're doing their job because they're getting the leads and they're pointing the finger at the call center for not booking them. And they're pointing the finger at sales for not running them. And sales is saying, I don't like that lead. So culturally, that's what I knew I was walking into. I knew that the culture that AJ drove and Noah drove, I knew that culture was one of accountability. And it wasn't just, as much as they were former sales guys, I was so impressed. I'll tell you a story. One of the reasons that really made me want to jump into this, when we were sitting in that diner and we were talking about the business that they had, you remember what you said to me?
Oh, yeah.
He said to me, he looked across the table at Noah and said, Noah, we actually had 3 call center reps call off today. Right now we have 50 call center reps, but when you guys had 4, when 3 of them called off, you know what that meant? They had to go back to the office. These 2 guys, the owners of the company, went back to the office that day, and they were the call center reps that day.
Wow.
Because they knew if we don't do it, there's no guarantee there's a business tomorrow. We're still young. This is a brand new company. And what I thought to myself in that moment is I have to go back and put together another PowerPoint deck that kind of is storytelling and doesn't actually move the needle. And I was so envious. Wow, you guys get to actually drive results. And I was so impressed by that. And in that moment, it told me that they will do anything it takes, not just sales, but they'll do call center, marketing. They will roll up their sleeves and get involved across the entire business. Accountability and connectivity across the business units is what will make your business succeed or fail.
Oh, I have chills from that story. That's incredible. I also think, too, it's awareness of people when they need something right then and there, and you don't meet them where they're at, they'll take their business elsewhere.
Oh,
If
yeah, absolutely.
you have one person handling calls and they got put on the back burner and they're not picked up for a while, they're like, all right, I'll go somewhere else. And
Yep.
that's missed revenue opportunities.
100%.
The home improvement market is massive and highly fragmented, with hundreds and thousands of contractors operating across the U.S. While the demand remains strong, most companies plateau early and struggle to scale beyond a few million in revenue. At the same time, broader market dynamics are shifting. Homeowners are staying in their homes longer, and more investment is going into renovations rather than relocation, creating strong tailwinds for companies in this space. So obviously, you guys are operating in a category where very few companies successfully scale. Why do you think most businesses hit a ceiling?
I would say that most businesses that are not 100 million plus, right? They're in that sweet spot of $1 to $5 million, which is respectable for a small operation. They're installation minded. They were contractors in a previous life, or they were maybe contractors up to the point of still owning their business. They've never really figured out how to connect process and people together. They're used to going out, swinging the hammer and doing the job. And when it's so labor intensive on you to do it, hard to scale and duplicate yourself. So you got to figure out how to duplicate the process, find people to do it. Long time ago, someone said, hey, if you can do the job, someone can do the job 80% as good as you need to delegate it. And we've done a really good job of being able to do that, of being able to connect people and process together and make sure that each division has a very strict and strenuous process so that it can be taught so that someone else can do it. And that's put us in a position to be able to scale the way that we have.
Are you seeing that impact of homeowners staying in their homes more? And is that typically why people come to you versus I'm building a new home and I want to use you guys?
One of the benefits of bathrooms is most homeowners have more than one of them, right? But they also don't replace them every 5 years. We actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were looking at what's the total addressable market in the United States. And I think you said it's 80 million homes, right?
80 million, yep.
80 million homes. So think about that. If there's 80 million homes and everybody has at least one bathroom, that's a lot of market. And that doesn't include all the new home builds in 10 years that eventually will get replaced from builder grade materials. The opportunity is endless, but I would say that people are staying in their home a lot longer due to how volatile the market is. Interest rates are going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And when interest rates are so high, people don't want to get rid of a 2% interest rate that they had 10 years ago to go into a 6 or 7% interest rate now. They stay in their home and they start doing some renovations to their home. So if and when they go to sell their house, now it's worth a lot more money.
Would you say most people just come to you for one bathroom to start and then they come back? Or do some people try to kill two birds with one stone of, hey, you're renovating this one, why not renovate the other one?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. We have not aggressively tried to penetrate the previous customer database like extensively yet. I would say that it's probably a small percentage right now. It's probably in like the 4 or 5% range of total sales that we've had come back and they go, hey, you guys did such a great job on my master bedroom. We want to get the other one done. And that happens. And now it's really happened with cross function because we went into a new product with whole house flooring now. So people go, whoa, you guys did my bathroom. We've been looking to get our floors done for 5 years. We're going to have you come out. And that's how that cycle continues.
And then to build on that, it speaks to the marketing element of it. Of one, you have to do good work, right? You have to have a good sales experience. You have to have a good customer installation experience. But then you also have to keep in touch with these people over time just to check in. And when they have a service issue, because we installed 7,000 bathrooms last year, not every one of them is going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to hire a crew that had a bad day, didn't make the caulk look perfect. And what happens at that point? Do you argue with the customer and basically a lot of companies will tell them to deal with it? Or do you make it right? And what we've always tried to do is make it right. So does that mean that there may be a little bit higher service cost on our side? Sure. But it would be short-sighted not to handle it that way. So that means that we make a commitment to the customers that we might not get everything right every single time. But in the event that we don't, here's how we handle it. And that comes back to the lifetime warranty, which a lot of companies have, but they make you jump through hoops in order to actually capitalize on that. But there's that trust word again. If you do the right thing, people will end up calling you back. And we have noticed a little bit of an uptick in our brand over, really, I'd say, the past 6 to 8 months, where people are starting to hear about us. And it's because we did your neighbor's home and your neighbor had a great experience. And did they have one service call? Maybe, but guess what? That's actually positive when, yeah, I did have one issue and they actually came right out and fixed it and took care of it from A to Z. I'm a thrilled customer. I do think that that outcome, that what you're describing of being able to go back and sell a second bathroom is really a leading metric of how well are you doing on the customer service and communication side throughout the process up to that point.
Oh yeah, customer service and any service-based business in particular is everything, especially when it comes to word of mouth. Just using my own example of I've moved a couple times. I moved from Berea to Ohio City and I've used this mover every single time. And I loved him so much, I've referred him to all of my friends. Yeah. And it's because he went above and beyond, and that goes a long way. And the thing is, you can't necessarily quantify
so that
from
is,
a marketing
that
angle.
Is brand, right? That is brand. People think brand is like if you use serif or sans serif on your logo. Like that's iconography, right? That's a visual brand. But real brand is what people say about your company when you're not in front of them. And you describing to your friends and neighbors, hey, you got to go with this moving company. That is ultimately, we can talk about marketing attribution, but when you're a young company like ours, you don't have a lot of that at the beginning. Why? Because we haven't done enough jobs and gotten enough momentum to have enough people like you out there who are talking about it and saying, hey, you got to go with my neighbor, or you got to go with this company as you're talking to your neighbor. But we have started to see that grow because we're doing good work and people are letting others know about it. And then you get into the marketing attribution element of it. How do we attribute this? And there is a little bit of art to the science of marketing attribution, and do the right thing. It may cost you a little bit more money, but at the end, you're going to have positives come out of it like you just described.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm excited because we're going to really dig into the marketing side of things. But I did want to bring up a recent quote from your other co-founder, Noah, who talked about an early marketing misstep that resulted in financial loss. That's actually how I found you guys, from the Lay of the Land podcast. So I'm curious, can you tell us what happened and what you guys learned from it?
I don't know if I recall.
I do. I know what she's talking about. Yeah. So, yeah.
Good. You are in charge of the marketing.
So we hire incredibly smart people. And one of the things that you can do as you hire new people is you have to find the right amount of autonomy and responsibility to give people. And I've always said that empowerment and responsibility have to be aligned. So you can't hold somebody responsible for an outcome and say, hey, I want you to be able to achieve X, Y, and Z, but not also give them the empowerment to make decisions in order to do that. So we have this brainiac developer. He is one of the smartest people I know, and that works for us.
I'm catching on that.
Now, we were looking at, we do a lot of targeted advertising across the country where we'll look at different zip codes and the home income rates, the home values, the poverty rates and things like that, because we don't want to put a billboard up in an area where we don't do a lot of billboards, but as an example, put a billboard up in an area where the average home value is $48,000 and we're going to go in and try to sell them a brand new bathroom. It just wouldn't make sense for that home. And then you can go in and could you maybe get it approved and sign them up for a 27% interest rate? Sure, but is that what we want to do? Absolutely not. We're intentional in terms of where we put our advertisements. Now, when you do these models, you can, depending on the model or the data that you feed into the model, it can give you different outcomes of, hey, this looks like a good neighborhood, or it looks just like another neighborhood that we do well in. We don't have any data in this neighborhood, but it looks demographically and psychographically similar to this neighborhood. So what we did is we did change our zip code targeting. And what ended up happening was we made a bet to where we were going to take out essentially the targeting of the bottom third zip codes and invest it slightly differently into new zip codes we weren't advertising in. And it didn't work. Now, while it didn't work and it did cause some short-term financial strain on the company, nothing significant, but you're used to receiving whatever extra money and it dipped a little bit. It wasn't detrimental. It was not a winning test. But here's the situation. What we learned from that, and I don't just mean what we learned based on what I just shared with you, the actual data underneath it was more valuable and has made us more efficient than had we never done that test. So my testing strategy, and it's been like this really for the past 10 years, is there's two different ways to do marketing tests. One is, and we call this multivariant testing. If there are, let's say you have a creative piece and you've got a red square, a blue square, a green square, and a yellow square. You can change just the red to black and then run it, and you've just changed one of the 4 elements of that variable test. It is going to take you a long time to see how that one change did. A high circulation is going to take you a long time. The other thing you can do is you can be very aggressive and change 3 of the 4. If you have movement, if a original postcard, original digital ad performs differently than the new digital ad, it tells you, okay, one of the things that we changed does make a difference. But if it makes no difference between the two, you can then say nothing here quite matters and we need to rethink this from the top. So what I found is when you change one thing, okay, no answer, move on to the next thing, okay, no answer yet. It takes you a while to get to the end. What we did is let's be very aggressive with our testing. We understand that is higher risk. However, the reward for that is either you win and it was absolutely a home run, or you lose, but you can quickly learn from what you lost on and pivot back. And that's ultimately what this test was. So I wouldn't have gone back and done it any differently, because the outcome ended up being much stronger than the slight dip that we saw during this process.
I think that's such a great perspective to have, because you can always take learnings away from something, what good or bad. And I think that approach is really interesting. Haven't heard many people have more of an aggressive testing, but at the same time, it's if you're doing a very low stakes test, what are you really gaining from it? You're still requiring money to test it. So if you're going to do it, right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's ways to catch people's attention visually. If you decided to change these to be red one week and, that this might cover, that may change the story a little bit in this setting. But if you were to say, hey, we're going to change something and make it completely different and let's see how the numbers go. If they didn't change, then it's like, okay, well, those elements that we changed don't seem to have a major impact on the story that we're telling. So it really does come down to, it comes back to the company that we own. Is we're an aggressive company. And in order to be an aggressive company and grow aggressively, you're going to have to make some aggressive decisions. You're going to have to live with
bumps in the road,
the ups and the downs. And that's exactly what we did. And we make sure that the people that are responsible for those tests, win, lose, or tie, we make sure that, hey, you're not in trouble. This is exactly what we're looking for. Keep your head up and try it again. Take another swing. So that's really the culture that we push at Premier.
Struggling with digital marketing, branding, or website design? Does it seem impossible to navigate the landscape of social media, influencers, and algorithm tweaks? At VividFront, we thrive on challenges like these. When the rules constantly shift, we don't just adapt, we excel. We've cracked the code for growth time and time again, propelling some of the biggest names in e-commerce and B2B to new heights. With our custom digital marketing solutions, we don't just promise results, we deliver them. Ready to take your business to the next level? Visit vividfront.com today to get started.
How has your marketing model evolved as the business has scaled?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've seen companies that have incredible brand that have been built over 50 years, like at ARS. They are really more of a holdings company with 70 different brands and logos across the country, some of which have very strong brands in their neighborhood, some of them that are brand new. I've been at Leaf where we've seen a brand grow from nothing to being one of the top 5 advertisers on all the major news stations. And now we're at Premier, where we're growing it really from the ground up. And there are different marketing approaches you take for each one of those. So the number one tip I always say is you shouldn't be generating demand until you are capturing all of the demand that is there, or a large part of the demand, and executing on it very strong. And I'll give you a little bit of a story that kind of paints this picture. There's 2 types of businesses when it comes to marketing. There's demand capture and there's demand gen. And I'll tell you a story about my dad used to own a pizza place. I went out of business, so it's not a super happy story, but I learned a lot from it, okay? So here's what I learned. There were 2 different types of days. The days where the phone just rang. And the goal of the business that day was to make sure you don't miss any calls, have great customer service, make a great pizza, get it to the customer and collect the cash, right? That is one type of business, and that is how a lot of home improvement companies operate their business. They wait for the phone to ring, and then they make sure that they have the operational infrastructure to handle when the phone rings. There were other days at the pizza shop where the phone just flat out wasn't ringing. So what did that mean? You had to go outside and spin the sign, right? You're on the corner, you're spinning the sign, you're advertising to try to get the phone to ring. What I learned is, unless if you are answering the phone, you have the right infrastructure, the right speed to lead, you have the right sales team, you have the right installation team, and you have the right technology backbone to handle all of that, you aren't ready to go out and spin the sign and make the phone ring even more because you don't have those processes built or the accountability. So much of this race that we're on isn't necessarily how fast each business unit is, but it's how well is the handoff when you're handing the baton from the marketing team to the call center to the sales team.
The conversion of it.
Yeah, the race is lost when you fumble the baton. Not necessarily how fast each business unit is. So the handoff, tech-wise, process-wise, accountability-wise, is the most important thing. So how do you then, once you have that ran very well, the next natural process, there's a step in that process would be to, okay, great. Now let's go spin the sign. Let's go advertise. Let's go create demand because we've proven we can capture it and we can execute it on at a very high level, but we need to make sure we can do that before we go just pile more phone calls on. That is where a lot of home improvement companies and companies in general make mistakes. AJ and I hear it all the time. People say, man, if I could just have the leads. We'll talk to them for a little bit and we'll ask them, tell us about your speed to lead and tell us about your processes, your reporting, your feedback loop. How are you sending automated reports back to your marketing partners and your attribution models? And they don't have any of that figured out. And my approach on that is more leads, and this goes back to that LinkedIn post, more leads are going to break and expose your business. So it's a 2-step process. 1, make sure you're capturing the demand that you have and executing on it at a high level. When that is running well, jump into the brand to make the phone ring. And what we've noticed is really over the past year, we're moving on to phase 2 of that. We started doing offline marketing. We're starting to do TV, radio. We're going to be putting up billboards soon. And also cross-selling to our existing audience that we have been taking care of over the past 2 to 3 years. So it's a 2-step process, but first you have to make sure you have your house in order from a process perspective, and you got to make sure you've got a killer operator partner that makes sure that the team is held accountable on a field level to run with those leads and do the most with them.
There's a part of that too where I think if you get too far down the road on either side, it's hard to go back and try to recreate. We were talking to someone in the industry. He's out of San Diego. He bought a business that's been in business, I think, for about 10 years. They're a small company. They're like $3 million. We were asking how your lead gen is. Like, how do you create appointments? Oh, we just answer the phone. We answer the phone and we do service calls. Most of our business is service calls.
One call center rep.
One call center rep.
Oh my gosh.
Garage door replacement, but most of it's service. And his appetite is, I need to get more leads. You've been doing the traditional marketing forever, just waiting on the referral to call you, or the person that had a garage door 10 years ago that needs a new one, or they need a new part on the garage door. They don't know how to create leads, or they don't even know if they were to buy leads, how they'd convert them. So I think that makes a lot of sense that if you're too far down the road on one end, it's really hard to reinvent the wheel and go back and try to change that traditional model.
Absolutely. Before I ask you a more serious marketing question, did you have to spin outside your dad's
Oh,
shop?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did whatever we had to do, and good days and bad days. And I think that it also goes into, we don't ever fail. Like, we fail sometimes. Absolutely. We learn things and we have made decisions that we look back on and we go, maybe that wasn't the right at the time. But that's part of building a very fast company. But yeah, I spin the sign no differently than what I initially brought me here when I saw that these two guys were willing to go spin the sign by working in the call center as two owners of the business at the drop of a hat after leaving that diner, because really, you can't be above anything. You can't be above anything in life. You do the job that not necessarily is your job. You do the job that you know will benefit the company, because benefiting the company benefits your career, and then ultimately you can grow into something really great.
Absolutely. So when it comes to capturing the demand, what channels are you primarily doing that on? I'm assuming Google search, but what else are you guys doing from a marketing tactics perspective?
Yeah, so I think step one in capturing demand is making sure that you're signed up for the most basic, have the basic things done. Have your Google My Business profile set up properly. Make sure you're capturing reviews. Make sure you have automated text going out. And, there's a reason when you get furniture delivered, the first thing they do is they ask you to leave a review, right? Because that's a big part of it. So that is going to start planting those a little bit. Then you also need to think to yourself, and I gave a keynote speech on this at one of the LeadsCon events a few years ago. It was about how search is dying, actually, with the invention of, or really with the not the invention, but like the scale of AI and how it's growing. Search is becoming more and more difficult, and it's starting to be dominated by some of the biggest domains out there. So search, you used to be able to say, hey, we're going to get Premier Home Pros to be the top organic search through some backlinks and black hat marketing. Now, the first 5 or 6 results are going to be Forbes, This Old House, Architectural Digest, maybe Bankrate, and these are all affiliates. So you need to make sure that you have strong partnerships with these affiliates. And if you don't have the scale, unfortunately, which a lot of operators don't want to do this, you're going to have to go through a company that does have that scale. You're not going to be able to call Forbes directly and be like, hey, we're in 40 zip codes. Any one of those 40 zip codes, can you send us the lead? Forbes is already selling those leads to a company like HomeAdvisor, and then HomeAdvisor is distributing them across the country. You got to start with those affiliates, those aggregators.
Monopoly.
And it is very hard. That's one of the hardest parts of the business. And I saw that's what these guys were doing. So once you have that done, then it's time to pivot into more paid search, branded search. And then after that, you probably pivot into more so print and direct mail. And after that, you're going to get into TV and radio. But yeah, there's certainly an order. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They start the opposite way. They start at the top and they go, we just need to be on TV and people will call us. I can tell you right now that that doesn't quite work right like that, at least not right away. When you see a brand has been around for 30 years, yeah, they get a lot of inbound phone calls and they think it's because of the TV ads. Really, it's because of 30 years of chip clips and refrigerator magnets and keychains that have been left, or stickers on the HVAC unit or whatever it may be. Time is what builds brand, and doing the right thing over time, not necessarily running a TV commercial and thinking that the phone's going to ring 10 minutes later.
Yeah, the whole digital space is changing at a rate that's almost hard to keep up with, because there's always something new with AI and how people are discovering your brand, especially too from a paid search perspective. It's just so competitive, especially in the space that you guys are in. I'm also curious if you guys have tried to tap into any LSA ads. We've done that for some of our clients that are in similar spaces and industries, but what we've seen is it's not qualified. We might be getting phone calls, we might be getting leads, but a lot of the intent that's coming in, this is just not our customer.
So LSA ads or local service ads through Google they're scored on 2 things. One is your review score. If you have a 4.4, you're not going to get many. Google is going to prioritize the one that is a 4.8, 4.9. So it goes back to that first thing. Have to get positive reviews, and you're not going to fake positive reviews. It has to be like really a reflection of what customers actually think. Number 2 is the amount of reviews that you have. I've actually seen some really crazy things where people will actually rent out another empty building down the road, because LSAs have what's called an LSA grid, where depending on where you are in that grid, it will prioritize the northeastern corner of Cleveland versus the northwestern corner of Cleveland. So if you have a mailing address in both of those, you can actually be shown twice. So there's a lot of, you think back to search and like the black hat marketing that we were able to do years ago, there is an element of that in LSA. That said, LSA is primarily for, I would say, home service, not necessarily home remodeling. We haven't had a ton of luck with LSA most people are Googling plumber near me, HVAC repair near me. Whereas the home improvement side or remodeling side, LSA hasn't been quite as big. And then for other home improvement companies that don't have strong category awareness, like gutter protection for one, everybody knows what a heating and air conditioning unit is. Everybody knows what a bathroom unit is. But some products don't quite have the category awareness of, I can't tell you back when I was at Leaf how many people flat out said, what's a gutter guard? And we had to build that over time. So I think LSAs are really more so home services than they are home improvement.
No, that's an important distinction. And it's just so interesting. I had no idea people were doing that.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a fairly common. Now, this is going back about 2 years for me. But no, this was really, it registers to an address. And the address is geographically based. So if you own a 2-hour service territory for $2,500 a month, it makes sense to get another building in another area of your service area, hang something on the front door that says it's your business and register reviews there. And it very much, I've seen it work before across a number of different companies.
I want to drill down on the category awareness part because I think that's really interesting. How have you guys built your category awareness, and how would you guide people to really figuring out how do we become a category leader?
I think different products I've worked in have had different levels of category awareness. The bathroom industry has very high category awareness. The difference between category awareness and brand awareness is category awareness is bathroom remodeling. Brand awareness is Premier Home Pros or some of our competitors. One of the products that struggled with category awareness in the early days was Leaf Filter. Like I would tell people, hey, I work for Leaf Filter, and they'd say, what's Leaf Filter? And I'd say, well, it's a gutter guard company. And they'd say, what's a gutter guard? I'd say, it's a thing that you put on top of your gutters that keeps out all of the leaves and stuff. And they'd say, oh, okay. Now, the difference between that type of category awareness and, shoes is when you advertise shoes, you don't say, this is a shoe. You put it on your foot. You wear it for this reason, and this is the reason that you need a shoe. And really, you don't. You jump right to the product awareness or the brand awareness to say, we are Nike. Here's why we are great. I've never seen a Nike commercial that explains what a shoe is, right? Like,
fair. I don't think I have either.
But you have seen that with a lot of home improvement ones where this is a tankless water heater. It heats your water. This is how it does it. And this is why it's better than something different. And maybe that's not the best example of a new category, but there's new categories popping up left and right. And it's hard because you have the same 30-second commercial, even shorter now with shorter attention spans, to explain to people, hey, here's the product category. Here's why you need it. Here's what will happen if you don't have it. Oh, and I have to tell you as well in the same 30 seconds, here's why you should go with us versus our competitors. That's a lot to explain and a lot to expect people to retain versus just saying, here's our brand, here's the competitor's brand, and here's why you should go with us. So you're almost trying to tell twice as much in the same amount of time, which does become challenging, but some companies have done a really nice job actually creating category awareness as well as brand awareness. And those are hard things to do, but very respectable.
I do think customers associate a bathroom as a bathroom, though. And then that's why a consultation has to be so descriptive, because they're just thinking a bathroom is a bathroom. They don't understand all the options that they have inside the space until you come out and actually go over them and thoroughly explain them. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. You've been in the home a lot more than I have, but I do think that people generally know they need something done with their bathroom, but it does take a high level of education to understand the difference in the products and the different price tiers and really go through that consultative approach to figure out what it is they want.
Because even like our targeted marketed ads, we don't do a lot of explaining the category awareness.
Right.
Like a bathroom's a bathroom, right?
Right. Yeah, like in prior companies, we would have to explain what the product actually does. We don't have to do that. If you got a 4x6 postcard, there's only so much real estate, and too much will actually just confuse people and it'll be information overload and they'll throw it away. The biggest thing in mail is the stop tactic. It's no different than at an event marketing show where you need to go up to somebody and get their attention in a matter of a second. And if you can get their attention, then you can go into the secondary. There's this and there's this and there's this. What's hard when you have fixed real estate, and this isn't really a digital issue except for on the ad side, not the landing page side, but when you have fixed real estate, you don't want to try to do too much. So how do you just simply catch their attention enough for them to go, ooh, I'm interested in that? Something that's been really great about our creative approach at Premier with bathrooms and even with flooring is that we are going directly into the USP of the product, the unique selling proposition of the product, not necessarily of why you even need the product. Everybody knows why they need a bathroom or they need floors,
Yeah.
right? So that's been a really big thing for us from a marketing perspective, and a huge reason why I was so excited to team up with these guys.
Yeah, obviously there's still an education element that you guys weave in, but to your point, everyone knows purpose of a bathroom, why you need a bathroom.
Yeah.
So that's a curve you don't have to necessarily get over.
Exactly.
I want to also revisit the awareness piece of things. When I think of generating awareness, my mind obviously goes to channels like Meta. I think obviously you can have retargeting in place, which helps nurture and capture some of the demand you've created, but Meta is where I go to from an awareness perspective, along with CTV and some bigger things like billboards and things like that. So how are you guys approaching building awareness digitally?
Yeah, I'm going to use a quote from a former chief growth officer that I worked with, that his name was Tim Castry, and he taught me a lot in a short period. And he said something to me, because I was always a direct response marketer. I was good at not necessarily building brand, but building brand just from enough DR will eventually build your brand, right? So he said something to me that has stuck with me to this day. And it's brand awareness is only worth something if it eventually leads to a conversion. There's a lot of companies that out there that have great brand awareness. It's actually negative, right? I'll never buy from that company. It's great you're aware about us, but
I don't want to be aware.
you know, I almost wish you weren't aware about us so we could start over. Brand awareness, I would say, isn't necessarily a single goal for us, because there's a lot of brands that we're all aware of that we would never buy from. So it's more so consideration and making sure that it all comes down to timing. If you are getting in front of a customer that got their bathroom done 6 months ago, and hey, I need to get in front of them once a week for the next 15 years, so they're aware enough to say when they're ready for their bathroom to be remodeled again in 15 years, they'll choose us. That is an incredibly expensive path. So it's more so, I'd say, the most important thing in marketing, and I learned this earlier. Like my college degree was in finance and marketing, and that was a complete accident. I wanted to do both, but I had no idea that marketing was going to be so data and scientific based. Like when I graduated, it was not, we weren't in AI, we weren't in big data, we were in let's make the logo blue because we did a study and 50 people said blue reminds them of the sky and the sky is everlasting and it gives us this feeling about your product. Now, through the more financial side and the data side, we did a test and this is exactly, and it turns out that this is exactly what it should look like because this was the sample size and so on. I think that marketing in general is so much more than, it has changed so much over the past, I'd say 15 years. And the pendulum has swung completely from like the Mad Men style, this is what we think the ad should look like because we've been doing it for a while and this is traditionally what's worked. And it shifted all the way to, we were able to run a test across 1,000 different people and this one performed at 10x the size of this. So that bar has been lowered. But yeah, I do think that it's changed a lot in time and it has become much more data focused.
That is such a happy accident that you pursued marketing and finance, because when I listen to a lot of different podcasts about the biggest disconnect is between the marketing team and the finance team, because marketing always wants more budget and the finances, we got to be strategic about this, but you can look at it from both lenses.
Yeah, and I think that so much of that too is being able to speak enough of the language of the finance leader to say, look, I get it, and I get why this is exactly what you're here for. We always say that AJ, Noah, and I, like, we're the gas in this company, and our CFO is going to be the brakes. Rightfully, that's just how the
model works.
Yeah, that's it. And that keeps you safe, and that keeps you growing at the appropriate level. So you got to understand they're doing their job too. Most of the time, what it comes down to is almost translation, where the way that the finance leader is thinking, which is very spreadsheet-based and value-based and measuring the knowns, and then the way that the the marketing person is thinking is quite a bit different. And what it comes down to is I've seen finance leaders say to marketing leaders, hey, we should cut X, Y, and Z because it doesn't appear to be working. Well, okay, working in what aspect? Like working in the traditional attribution model that we use. So I don't recommend ever changing attribution models, but I do recommend the marketing team being able to show the value and the data, because there's financial data, but then there's also context. And if the marketing team can provide that context to the finance team, the finance leader goes, oh, I totally get it. So you're saying, sure, we could move these line items around on a spreadsheet, do some reattribution, which is a never-ending game, and my spreadsheet will read something slightly differently, and I'd be okay with the results. But more so just sharing that context to say, yes, we can do that, but just so you know, if we did that, we believe we would lose all of this. Do you still believe we should do it? So it's really a translation role between two very different left brain, right brain style people.
Obviously, from a marketing perspective, you need to be putting paid dollars behind it in some capacity, but you want to make sure you're driving traffic to an optimized website. So how important is your site based off of your business model?
It's becoming more and more important, certainly, because as your brand continues to grow, your direct web traffic is going to continue to grow as well. In the early days, it was more so a social proof where we may be getting the lead from a third-party aggregator, we may be getting the lead from Home Advisor or another company like that. And the website would purely be used just to people who have already converted, just go on it and check us out, read up on us a little bit and make sure that we are professional and they are comfortable with who we are and our history and so on. Now it's becoming more of a conversion focused tool because we are doing TV ads and we are doing print ads. So attribution becomes tough because you can say, oh, we'll just put a premierhomepros.com/postcard on the URL. Most people aren't going to actually do that. They're going to Google Premier Home Pros. They're going to click on the first paid ad, and then they're going to convert. So the website is super important, but even more important than the website and the conversion and the CRO is the way that it's structured. What I've realized over the past probably 2 years, 3 years, is that websites, I think, are turning into databases. I don't believe that websites are really going to be much of a thing in 10 years. I think
That's a hot take.
And here's why. I believe that the structure and the schema of your data is going to be more important than the visual identity of your website. Because Google you go back in time, when Google was first built, and this is more SEO based, but when Google was first built, its goal was to be a matchmaking company. Its goal was to take a customer who has a search query and match them with a website that matches that search query. And their goal was to keep you off of Google's website, get you on and off as quickly as they possibly could. Then ChatGPT comes along, and you actually never leave ChatGPT. ChatGPT is pulling in the data from your website in plain text format and giving you an answer. So it really doesn't matter if you use a red button or a green button on your website for your CTA. What matters is the SEO and the title tags and everything else, and the content. Is it structured in a way to where AI is going to be able to crawl that quickly, find the answer, give it back to the customer? Because we've changed from Google being a matchmaking company to actually making it really a walled garden where you never leave Google now. You are stuck there. You don't really click and go to the website after that. I believe there will be a day in the very near future where you're actually booking the appointment through that same AI tool, and you're never actually getting to Premier Home Pros.
So what are you doing to ensure that discoverability across these LLMs or even the Google AI overviews? Because it's pulling from the same important information from your site.
I think number one is making sure that the content on the page actually makes sense and answers the questions that most people are answering or asking. And I think that the second thing would be to make sure that you're really making sure that the site is built in a way that emphasizes data structure, data questions, answers to those questions, and making sure that you're not necessarily building the site to be, for lack of a better word, pretty. Because I think that the visual identity of the site is going to become less important than the content and the structure and the schema. There's a very good chance, I believe, maybe it's not 10 years, maybe it's 20 years, but websites as we know them today are going to be considered databases that are simply storing data for these LLMs to crawl. And if your site is set up in a way to make sure that it's optimized for that, I think it's going to be able to return the results faster, provide the questions that are, or the answers to the questions that are being asked. And it's going to be less about if you use serif or sans serif font, or if your headers look one way versus another. Or I think it really is going to come down to the information, not necessarily the visual identity of the information.
That's a very hot take. I think we'll have to have you on in 20 years to see.
Oh, hopefully it's faster. I don't know. We'll see.
It is funny just watching it. You're beaming. You have the right guy in the right seat for your marketing. But how involved are you in these marketing conversations? I'm just curious.
Collectively, we're involved in all of them. We do monthly budgets and just formulating the data and projecting out for Q1 and Q2 and so forth, even the year. It's all part of the funnel. So am I in every day when a new marketing partner gets added to the mix? No, I don't even think Vince is at this point. But as far as the strategy behind it, it's a collective effort for sure.
I would say AJ's superpower is connecting the 3 to 4 different business units. He's the CEO, so he is responsible for making sure that I have what I need, what our operations leader has what he needs, Noah, call center, needs what he needs, Curtis, sales officer, has what he needs. So one of the biggest things with our business right now is connecting those business units. If installation is going to have a difficult month, we don't collect the revenue until we install the job. Great, we sold $20 million this month, but if we only install 15, that financially is not great, right? We're still profitable and it's a strong month, but we want to be able to make sure that all the business units are able to hit their goals. So AJ's the one who stands back and goes, Vince, I actually need you to pull this marketing budget back because unfortunately the other business unit just is behind for whatever reasons. Definitely involved in each one of them, but gives us a lot of autonomy to make sure that we do have clear budgets at the beginning of each month. We try to hit each one, but if one area isn't quite able to hit, that does mean that we may need to make some hard decisions on the marketing side. And we've got 2 really great marketing leaders in Sydney and Marcus, Sydney runs the digital side and Marcus runs the offline side, and Amanda runs more so the communications and PR side. So they've all done it on very large stages before, and we've got a really rockstar team.
Final question for you both. What's one piece of advice you give to a home improvement business doing $5 million today that's trying to reach $50 million?
Hire someone like Vince. No.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. No, it's you got to relook at the business. I guess visualize where you want it to be. I think everybody's goals are different. I don't think every business in the home improvement industry is looking and saying, I want to be the next Premier Home Pros. I think that there's companies that are very content at that $10 to $20 million, and they've been there for 30 years and they inherited from their father, and they're just trying to maintain a strong brand and keep the people working that's inside the building. But I think the one thing that everybody wants to do is they want to grow, but they don't know how. So it's infusing the processes to be able to allow it to happen. And that's going to start with, like he said earlier, with marketing being the topic. Marketing, you could buy every lead available, but if you can't convert it, even in the call center, to an appointment, or you can't convert it to a sale, you're going to spend a lot of unused money that doesn't go anywhere. So it's connecting all the processes together and making sure you have the right people in place to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Every business is going to have slightly different goals. I would tell you right now that as much as people think that I'm a marketing person, our marketing is successful because of our processes. What kind of processes? 1, making sure that the other elements of the business are set up to support that marketing growth. But 2, making sure that you have great transparency into your data. We recently hired a new marketing person, Sydney, and what she was most blown away with was our analytics and our overall dashboards and the ability to find the answer to a question quickly. So what does that start with? It really starts with building a strong platform, clean data in, clean processes, not working out of spreadsheets, not working out of different Word files on your desktop, but having a centralized database that all the data goes into. Because once you have data going in, you can get really clean data out, you can make decisions off of. So one thing that I learned a long time ago is that when I would look for problems in the business, I would say, hey, these are the 50 questions I need to go through. Each morning I would say, how are we leads year over year, sales year over year? Are there any offices that are down, any geographies? What do we need to know? And what I realized is that I established a tolerance, meaning if the answer to any of these questions, if we were more than 10% up in leads, I want to know, but between 0 and 10, okay. It's very easy to program a computer to just run that each morning and basically say, hey, the list of questions that I'm concerned about, tell me the answer to all those. And then I can go without going through all 50 questions and getting the answer. And it turns out that the answer was actually on line 47. It will just tell me that line 47 is the issue. And then I can share that with AJ and we can go solve the problem together. So as important as marketing is, I tell everybody this, what's more important, number 1, is the system and the platform that you have. And number 2 is the accountability from your partners and your leadership team to make sure that you can drive people to follow that process, follow those systems, because it's just this big flywheel. Good data in, good data out, make a good decision, rinse and repeat.
Awesome advice. Are you guys ready to be in the hot seat?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're not in it right now?
I thought this was.
I know.
Oh.
People say that often. I'm like, hopefully it was fun.
Yeah.
Biggest mindset shift since starting Premier?
Mindset shift. I would tell you that for me, it's always, I just posted this too. It's funny. I'm always focusing on winning the day. That's it. Like every business owner, every business leader, every professional inside their category is looking at the long-term game. What are they going to accomplish in X amount of time? But I think if you can't string together wins by the day, you can't focus on the week, the month, the year, the quarter, whatever it may be. So mine is always instilling a belief in just winning the day. And that's the mindset shift at Premier is we called it the ACT mentality. It's always compete today. And that's the mantra that we instill in our team that, hey, when you come into the building this morning, just focus on today. Don't worry about tomorrow or what we're going to do the rest of the month. Focus on today. Do your job to your best of your ability, and the rest of the success will follow.
I love that. Hottest marketing take.
I probably gave it to you on the website.
Yeah, you did. That was very
elements of
hot.
it. I would say that, a couple things. One is obviously the use of AI, but I'll actually give you another one. I think that SaaS bloat or software as a service bloat is one of the biggest problems we have in marketing and marketing technology, specifically in our industry, particularly because a lot of these operators are former sales guys or former installation guys or girls who are trying to figure it out as they go. And there's a lot of miracle tools. We've seen them. Hey, we've got this miracle SaaS tool that can come in and it will fix every problem you have. That tool ends up costing a lot of money and it's difficult to integrate with your other tools. And a lot of times what people don't realize is if you just use the tools you have and the way that they were designed to be built and you build your processes around those, what you'll realize is that you can cut your SaaS budget in half, even more.
I'm not here.
We've done that. We're probably spending a third of what we were spending in SaaS when we're twice the size as we were. And a big part of that is, you have to hire some very smart technology people. You have to be able to give them the direction of where to go. But I would say this, SaaS bloat in marketing technology is absolutely something that each business unit, each business leader should be looking at on the P&L. And more importantly, I think on your P&L in general, there should be a little initial next to each one of the line items. And AJ said this before too. If the goal or the line item is owned by everybody, it's owned by nobody. So empowerment and making sure that people understand that this is the goal, clear goal. Here's where we're headed. What do you need in order to get that done? And I think that's been my biggest, not only mindset shift, but also probably one of the hottest takes is make sure that you have your data in a way to make people succeed.
You guys aren't Cleveland based, so I will change it up a little bit. But favorite Akron restaurant, both of you?
Oh, we can do Cleveland?
Oh, all right. Make it Cleveland then.
All right.
I always try to appeal to where my guests are from.
I would challenge that. I think just even based on where I live, comparing Akron even to Cleveland, I would say Citizen Pie is
I
phenomenal.
love Citizen Pie.
And obviously the staples. I love Marble Room. I love Blue Point. I would say Marble Room on the atmosphere is top notch. We've had the luxury of being able to travel all around the country. We have 16 offices in 22 states. And I would say that Marble Room's atmosphere is top notch.
Yeah, let me think through this one. I did grow up more in the Cleveland area. I went to school in Parma. But there's a lot of great restaurants out here. There were so many good ones in Tremont that aren't there anymore, unfortunately. But there is, Marble Room is really hard to beat, there's no doubt. But I actually got married at Red. Not many people can say that. There's an upstairs like private room where my wife and I, we wanted to throw together a really quick wedding. We had 70 people there. And I think that Red and anything on East 4th is just, the ambiance is amazing. And I would say Red is up there for me, certainly. And there's actually a really great place in Hudson, Ohio, where I live that I just love. And it used to be called One Red Door. Right next to it is a place called Porta Rosa. They've got great wine. They've got great food. And it's a little smaller place, but it's a really beautiful restaurant. And a little bit, now I wouldn't say a diamond in the rough because it's a beautiful area, but I don't think it's super well known yet. And it's excellent.
Favorite Cleveland coffee shop?
I don't come to Cleveland much for coffee.
I love 27 Club.
Yeah,
I do. I took him once. He didn't like it.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
So I love
trendy. No.
I love 27 Club. I love Hartwood's excellent. But 27 Club, I got to meet him years ago back in 2012 when he was just coming up, and he's a super awesome person. So I love being able to support his coffee shop. Not that he needs it. I think he's doing all right. That's Machine Gun Kelly. But I think that his music's always been something that I've really admired, and really just him representing Cleveland, I think is super cool. So I love that coffee shop.
AJ, Vince, this was an incredible conversation. Where can listeners find Premier Home Pros, and where can they connect with you both directly?
Yeah, we're both very active on LinkedIn. Business is active on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn's big. LinkedIn, I think, is going through a transition right now where There's a lot of AI out there. So I think that one of the biggest tips I would say with LinkedIn right now with your content is you got to come across as authentic. So we definitely try to put out some more authentic posts and make sure that people can connect and really see the real us.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Now it's time to start making moves. Head to vividfront.com/marketing moves for exclusive marketing materials. Every episode, we add more of our greatest insider secrets to help you move towards success. See you next time.